And welcome back to 0 to 60, where the three bearded weirdos are actually alone, purely on the basis that Scott managed to escape after doing 2 episodes on the trot. But I am still kindly joined by my usual co-hosts of the Demon Ranger, George, and Big Sauce himself. Evening, chaps.
Evening.
Hello.
How are we doing, gents?
It's been quite the week in Flesh and Blood, hasn't it? Really, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, that's one way of putting it. I mean, I think obviously the majority of this episode shall be devoted to the events at the weekend and somehow not being consumed by the queue and actually managing to play some Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the story really starts just before last weekend when we didn't even know who was going ahead, and that was, I mean, there'll probably be more on that later, but still, it made quite the end to last week.
I mean, there was very mixed emotions from Tuesday to Wednesday, but I think, like you said, George, I think that might sneak into vexing malice. As believe me, I do believe there was a fair bit of malice around on Tuesday evening. I've never seen an atmosphere quite like that at an armory. But no, gents, we obviously, I guess we might as well start right at the top. We have literally just come back from Nats. Some of us had a pretty good weekend, wouldn't you say, Liam?
Yeah, I'd definitely say it was not half bad, to be honest.
Yeah, I suppose you.
I'd call that an understatement. At least a slight bit of an understatement there, Liam. Well done.
Well, no, congratulations, fella, on your finish. And also, I won't say exactly where you finished, but you did manage to bore a few people to death. So, sorry, spoilers. He was on Oldham, so.
He somehow managed to bore people to death and yet have one of the most interesting top 8 games I've ever seen. So, you know.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to concur on that one. It was a hell of a watch, which, obviously, George, we might as well do ours before we let Big Sauce loose.
Yeah, well, go on then, Brooks. Why don't before I give the disappointment of mine, why don't you go ahead and tell us how well you did? Because to be fair, you didn't have half a bad of a Nats experience yourself.
No, I mean, for anyone who knows me, last year Nats was a little bit of a write-off. I had a lot of shit going on personally, which distracted me, so to speak. So I was keen to avenge last year, but I still took Dory because that's when people ask me what I'm playing, I always laugh because I always give them the same answer. And but she did good, even running Helm of Sharpeye as my only headpiece. To which eventual winner George Rogers said, "Oh, I understand it. If you haven't got a Crown of Providence." His face when I then told him I did, this was a choice rather than being forced into it, was a picture. But,
so given that it was a choice, Brooks, would you do it again? Would you run the Helm of Sharpeye again?
No, I would not.
Not now you've got your eye of Ophidia.
I guarantee he has in his sideboard from now on. 100%.
If I've got space in my sideboard, it will make it. But no, I did. The Dory deck I took was relatively experimental, I think is the way to say it. George will attest to the fact that the night before you had to talk me out of putting Unified Decree in my list.
Yeah, to be fair, I wasn't alone in that. You did thankfully ask us all what we thought of that, and I think we all tried to band together to take that shit out of your deck and and play something respectable instead. Sadly, we couldn't talk about the Helm of Sharpeye because he did. I don't think he brought your crown with you.
Nope. I didn't bring Crown, I didn't bring Arcanite Skullcap because I was determined. As I've slandered the card on so many occasions, thought, you know what, I'm actually going to give it a proper run out and I will try it. I can safely say I gave it a good go. I played it in every single round. And it didn't really come in clutch at any point. It might have forced an extra defense reaction at one point, which was interesting, but don't think didn't win me any games. But no, like I say, Dory performed admirably. She went 3-3. My drafts were both 2-1s on Dromai. Why people were draft 1. Someone passed me Dracona Optimi, which won me 2 games. Draft 2, which was one of the most stacked pods I've ever been in. Very much a content creator pod, with likes of Finbar and two of the Push the Point chaps in it. Got past a Dominia, which won me 2 games. Apologies to Simon Denning for the one popper he had in his entire deck I managed to banish, which I think actually won me the game. But I was really pleased, managed to get a sneaky 17th place finish. So managed to cash, which, considering last year I dropped after the draft at round 6, I was very pleased that. I had a couple of interesting, some really interesting people I played against. Alex, who was in the top 8. Also played George Roger, who obviously was the eventual winner. Like I said, I played Simon Denning, so I played some really, really good players. And yeah, just have to say I was giving myself a little pat on the back on the drive home. Not literally, because that'd be illegal for driving. But
so you should.
No, I was very, 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 very pleased.
No, you smashed it, mate. You did incredibly well. You did your girl proud, to be fair.
Yeah, I was saying, I mentioned it to him on Discord, but thanks to Sharif for a couple of interesting chats, and to Darren as well, who I think were the only other 2 Dory players in the room. So, and we all ended up in Draft Pod 2, which was also interesting that all 3 of us ended up in the same spot. But yeah, anyway, that's my Nats. I have to say, very, very enjoyable. George?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I obviously somewhat spoiled mine in that I don't think I didn't have the greatest time. It started fairly well, so I probably brought it on myself slightly. I was playing some pretty janky stuff for this Nats. I took the same thing that I won the RTN with, and took a Torlice Lexi build to it. The deck is I think better positioned now that Prism's out of the meta. She's very good into the aggro decks. It turns out, surprisingly, that FaB just doesn't deal well with 5 frostbites a turn. Whoever would have known.
Who does?
So, some people, Guardian apparently.
Those guys.
I know those guys. So anyway, yeah. So I took this. I knew it was a risk going in, but actually, I think she performed reasonably well. In the end, I had my round 1. I had an opponent playing Dash. Had a close game. He made the right choices in the sideboarding. Didn't come out and try and aggro me with Pounder. Flipped over an induction chamber and looked like he was going to try and fatigue. He wasn't too far away. The hell totals were obviously in my favour, but that really wasn't what the game was about. So yeah, he got reasonably close to fatiguing. I think I still had 1 remembrance left in the deck before I managed to just push through the damage I needed to kill him off, just with a big dominated attack. But yeah, in the end, it didn't quite get there for him. I think I probably had another couple of turns in me before I was in danger of being fatigued. So then I played against Kashi after that on Katsu. Now that's obviously much more that my deck is prepared for. So apart from, I think, one real mistake in my own turn in which he took a large portion of my life total off me. I just literally forgot to give him 1 frostbite, and that let him combo off on a turn. The game was reasonably okay for me. It was more in control of it. It got me down very low in the end because I think principally off that turn, a couple of others where I just didn't give enough disruption, but managed to push through that game. And then, of course, I managed to run into round 3 and do what I do every single tournament, which is run into the one Guardian player that's like anywhere near the top of the tables.
Your ability to snipe a Bravo is absolutely, even if it's not Dave Calf, you can still find him.
No, I still blame Dave for this one, considering right before the tournament, he sat there, he says to me something along the lines of, and I will paraphrase this slightly, of, I'm not playing Bravo today, but it's all right. My friend here, you can play him. He's on Bravo. And then that's exactly who I run into in round 3. So thank you, Dave, for that. It's really what I needed. So, and it also happened to be my first game on stream. So wonderful. To be honest, it could have been a really interesting game if I hadn't had quite such a rough start. I think I had a very clunky start, and the deck just falls apart when you don't find an arrow, really. But I had a big turn, 3 of a kind, quite early, and then found nothing. Had to pretty much just pass turn back. I let him get a massive life disparity. I think I was on like mid-20s before I even damaged him. And then in the end, managed to kind of just pull it back slowly. But he managed to close the game out around 15 health and took my last loss in the CC rounds. So as a loss there. Then went into draft. Was in draft pod 2. In fact, sat right next to the actual factual Scott Howling Mines, which was interesting. Had what I thought had been a reasonable draft. Opened the first pack, took a look at it. It was like, this is an absolutely cracked Dromai pack. I thought, you know what? I'm not gonna take a Dromai card from this. I'm gonna just pass it. Hope for let them fight that out for this. I'll take a reasonable fight. I think I took a Sash, actually, to be fair, because I mean the pack was pretty cracked regardless. So I was like, okay, I'll take the Sash, hedge my bets a little, then I can pivot either into Dromai if the good Dromai cards keep coming, or I can stick with FaB. And then ended up in like the next 2 packs just absolutely seeing all the Dromai cards and was like, do you know what? I've got to pivot back to Dromai. I'd probably put someone else to my left on Dromai, but I think that happens no matter what I pick there, so I end up having to do that. And to be fair, I get some very powerful cards. But the draft in the end went reasonably well. The games, on the other hand, just didn't quite go my way. So I ended up 1-2ing that draft pod, and then finally, obviously dropping down a bit for the final draft, in which everything possibly went wrong for me that it could. In this one, decided to look to the opening pack. Was like, this pack's terrible. Ended up picking the blue frosting, thinking this is the only decent card in the pack. I'm gonna have to go Icelander, or at least think about it. Early Icelander picks are there, and then midway to the end of the first pack, I'm like, these Icelander picks have dried up. Maybe we've just run out of good cards here. By the start, midway through the second pack, I'm like, no, this is just someone else has pivoted around me, and unfortunately, that had been the case. The person next to me had decided midway through the pack there to pivot to Icelander. Unfortunately, that was kind of the story of my second draft pod. Ended up on another 1-2, I think it was, if memory serves. That was kind of my Nats done at that point. I didn't get to, unfortunately, get Lexi back out for CC. I ended up playing the PTI day 2, but that wasn't a particularly great story to tell. But that'll be for another time, I'm sure. So that was my national championships. What about onto you, Liam? I guess.
Oh,
go on, have your 15 minutes of fame, Liam.
15 minutes of fame. You want the guy that doesn't talk a lot? Okay.
Well, stop doing so well then. Then you won't have to talk about it. You could just go, it sucks, like I did.
Like the Utrecht episode where I spoke like 4 fucking words.
Exactly. Then you can get away with that. Stop doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously I took my pet deck finally to a tournament in Oldham, specifically Fatigue Oldham, just because for me it's like the deck that I understand and play the best. It's definitely an off pick. I think the deck's very good into the meta. It just suffers as slightly worse matchups into Iceland and Dromai than the aggro version does, but it's better into aggro than the aggro deck would be. So I took the risk of going to time quite a lot, which I did. I think I played a shit ton more FaB than nearly everybody in that room. Day 1 started with playing against a bit of friendly fire, starting off as Seb Ball, playing Briar. It's a deck. Obviously, Briar's a deck that I was playing last season, so it's a matchup that I knew very, very well. He did whiff a few times. He had me worried, not gonna lie. Revel in Runeblood's a bitch of a card against Oldham, but we managed to. I think I killed him with around 2 cards left in his deck. So 10 minutes on the clock, I was happy. So that kind of like relieved the stress, especially for round 1. Then I queued into. Did I queue into FaB second round? I think it was FaB second round. George Rogers' testing partner on the Kadachi fire list, which for me felt reasonably comfortable. It kind of plays like Katsu, so like your shield and your crown tend to eat up any floating damage. So like you tend to take the first Kadachi, you can block the second one with the shield, then any break points that come over your crown covers. A lot of my deck blocks of 4 in Oasis, Fate for Seeing Sink Belows, and of course one of the MVPs of the weekend in Brothers in Arms Blue. So I sealed that one up quite well.
How is that card still being played?
The card's good in Oldham when your deck is built single-handedly round Rampart and Crown, so it fills the void of the one resource floating. Round 3, I queued a Sean Nolden on Icelander. Again, because practicing with Scott is a matchup that I know very, very well. I know that I just need to aggro. I need to be very precise with the way I play the game, get my dominates in, get my pummels in. So I ended up going very aggro. I think I killed him when I was still on like 18. He only got one Frost Hex on me. So I felt reasonably comfortable. He had to block it. I hit him on a few good turns where I was seeing his defense traction hands. So it went reasonably well. So I ended up in pod 1 for draft 1. Pretty decent pod. Drafted Dromai. Ember Moors. I think I drafted 10 Ember Moors over the whole weekend. Because a lot of people on obviously the Force Fi, I'm not very comfortable on Icelander in draft. So like Dromai tends to be my like lean into, and I trust the Ember Moors just to go like Centipie, Pitch Blue Centipie Ember Moor for 13 Arsenal card is very good. And I think that you can still pressure Fi. So I ended up winning round 1, beating Rob Catton on Fi. Then I queued into some insane opponents, by the way. I went into like Sean Nolden, then into Rob Catton, then into Shamir on Icelander on stream, which went disaster. I don't think I played that very well. Then came out of that one and queued an Icelander, I want to say. And then I beat the Icelander. So I ended up, after pod 1, 5-1, sat in the exact same seat, pod 2. Then drafted Dromai again. Drafted another 5 Ember Moors, because why wouldn't you?
Why not?
Why would you not? Then I queued Isaac Murray, who was a eventual top 8er. He smoked me on stream, because apparently I just can't win on stream. I'm like Brendan Patrick 2.0.
I think he was top seed, wasn't he, going into...
Into day 2 he was, yeah. Yeah, he was. No, into the top 8 he was.
Into the top 8?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. So yeah, I lost that game, went to 5-2, and I was starting to stress a little bit, because I felt like my CC wasn't good, the draft wasn't good. I didn't want to throw away my top 8 chances on second draft. Queued the mirror, played relatively well, and made a pretty good read. Oh, it wasn't a read; it was more of an educated guess. That it was. I had played a Vincerakai, and he had a Yender Eye on the board, so it was either trade my 2 dragons to his 2 dragons to get board control, then swing 8 at him, or it was send the Vincerakai at face to force him to block, so then the Embermore in my hand kills him. And working out which one was actually the better line was quite risky. So I ended up sending the Vincerakai at face. He didn't have a popper. He blocked out. The Embermore killed him. Won the mirror. Then had an intense game against Pete Ward against Fi, where I think we're getting down to like 2 health each or something stupid. And he's only got like 3 cards left in his deck. And my Embermores are just forcing him to block to the point where he can't kill me anymore. So I end up the day 1 on 7-2, I believe. 2-1, 2-1, 3-0. Yeah, 7-2.
Yep.
So I'm happy, going into day 2, back into CC. I then queue Finbar in the mirror, and this was an interesting game. Because I know about the exposed tech, and if you leave yourself open, exposed tends to snipe your crown or the tunic. And obviously you need tunic in the older mirror to be able to block and use your sledge to Arsenal card. So I ended up drawing an all-red hand and decided to attack him rather than doing nothing. And then, of course, on that decision, he exposed the others to me in my tunic. So I had to play an older mirror about 5 turns deep with no fucking tunic.
I mean, tunic's overrated, right?
Apparently, because I ended up winning the game. But during that game, Finbar chooses to heave a pulverize into his arsenal. Now, it's a risky move because if you get pressured enough, you can't play that pulverize out because you can't crown it away because it's face up. I ended up Arsenal passing because I was going to get on the defensive, and he only drew 6 pitch with 3 seismic surges and couldn't play the pulverize out of his arsenal. So he had to spend the next 6 or 7 turns not being able to crown. So I had no tunic, he had no crown. Eventually, he took a bit of damage to get the pulverize out of his arsenal. But I built up a decent enough health lead to the point where eventually you take a sledge from the Oldhim and then you present 8s. So you present an 8, you present an 8, you present a 10, you present an 8, 10 dominate, 9 dominate. And eventually you just wear them out of cards to the point where you back and you just eventually kill them. So they ended up finishing the game, going to 8-2. Then I queued Jamie Faulkner on Dromai in Swiss, which is a bitch of a matchup. I'd really want to play it. You just have to try and aggro them out, and it just doesn't work. Especially someone who knows the deck as well as Jamie does. So it was over in about 17 minutes, I think. We've just aggroed each other out, killed me, moved on with my life. Getting a bit worried at 8-3 because I thought that the last game was going to be a winning in. I've had people tell me I'm locked. I've had people tell me that I'm not locked. So I go into an Oldhim mirror against Tom Hall, who was the eventual runner-up. I have, again, all red hand, chose to swing, got punished by another exposed to the elements on my tunic. This was like turn 4, turn 5. So I have to spend the next 45 minutes throwing my sledge at him with no tunic. We end up 1-on-1. Like, again, I fought gallantly. I did all I could. He eventually killed me. He ended up swinging it. The turning point was a yellow Earthflow Surge into Matchrock Grande for 12 dominate. Which, believe me, is a bitch to deal with. You've got no distraction in your hand. So obviously, Tom Hall played it really well. He's a really, really good Guardian player. He was... I was trying to catch him out of a pummel by doing crown into my reactions so I could get the pull into my arsenal. So I could block and keep it. But he also had he left the pulse in his arsenal. So when I was going to kill him with the pummel, he had the defense traction to stop me anyway. So he eventually killed me. I got all very upset because I thought my top 8 chances had gone. And then Adam came over and told me that I was finished in 7th. So then I started fucking being a bit elated. Started shouting while I just went through that whole fucking mirror for no fucking reason.
I mean, that's one way of putting it. I mean,
I actually said that out loud then, and people found that amusing. So it was funny. So yeah, I made top 8 into 7th seed. I would have liked to have been a little bit higher because, or higher or lower, in fact, just to avoid Jamie Faulkner and Dromai because I knew the matchup was going to be very long. I think I'd rather have made it to the final before going through this insane matchup. But top 8 starts, and it's Dromai versus Oldhim. Now we're not in time, I can switch up my game plan that I've been working on, which is to fatigue Dromai. And people think it's absolutely psychotic. And I think it's legitimately the only game plan Oldhim can do to win the game consistently. So I think someone told me that in the end, the match went on for an hour and 30 minutes. Someone told me it went on for. I'm not sure how accurate that is.
fairly.
It was an insane slog of a game of me controlling the board state, controlling my health total, knowing that he's going to tunnel time at both my AB, triple stack burn them all, and I need to stay up on a high enough life total so that Ghostly Touch doesn't kill me while keeping enough poppers in my deck, while getting rid of all the crap that I don't want in my deck. So we go through this hour-long, like an hour and 10 minutes of back and forth, both executing the game plan exactly how we want to do it. Then the last 10 minutes is a bit chaotic because he plays a Red Rake and he goes up to like 7 Ashwings, and I have to blow like 3 poppers so I don't leak a shit ton of damage. I have to pop and hammer, pop and hammer, pop and hammer. Eventually he gets to the point where he Mage Master Boots, passing Mirage into Ghostly Touch with no Phantasm. I think it's going in for 18, something stupid.
I think it was 17.
17, yeah, 18 counters it had to take down one, something like it was at 19 counters because it came for 18 because I took 4 damage.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so I purposely left the Pulse of Ice and left in my arsenal as backup, knowing the game plan. So he attacks me for 18, I block for 2 3s, then play the Pulse which buffs the 3s to 4s, take 4. I'm happy as Larry. I'm on 8. He's got a goal to touch count with 17 counters. I pitch a blue to hammer the passing mirage, and I've got 10 cards left in my deck. 2 of them are blue glacial footsteps. Draw my hand, and they're not there. He swings for another 17. I only have 8 block. He kills me by 2. And I don't know. I think it's probably one of the greatest games I've ever played in Flesh and Blood so far. And it sucks to lose it. Because the game, I think I played that game probably like, after watching about probably like 98% perfect. I think I made like a couple of interesting decisions that I didn't have to make if I'd thought about it a little bit more. But I thought about them decisions afterwards, so it's like 2020 hindsight if you want to think of it like that. I think there's a world where I should have won that game. But again, you also can't be mad at losing that kind of game, right? Because everyone came up to me, and I've heard people talking to James saying that it was a great game. I've had people still, like, a couple of days later saying how good that game was to watch. So I think it's good to be a part of that kind of stuff.
No, I mean, me, Scott, and Ash, obviously, George was busy playing the PTI at that time. Like, watching it, it was just a great game to watch. There was no two ways about it in terms of what was going on, how you were playing it. Like I say, it was nigh on a perfect game to watch. I think, as someone who has fervently argued against people like Oldham even existing in the world, it was a really fun game to be able to just see the back and forth, the decisions having to get made constantly through the game. So yeah, I think you did yourself proud, mate, because it really did come down to, could you get that last popper? Yeah,
basically. I think again, it's down to me, right? Because it's fourth. I think it's like fourth or fifth cycle. I think if I play the Heart of Final, I'll win that game because I heal for enough. Because I see it too many times. Which I also took out my deck for the Blue Pummel, which won me 2 games. So it's like, a bit of 50-50 either way. But I think if I can separate the poppers a little bit better, like I had a conversation with Tobias Lind, who is I think he's Swedish. He's playing kind of like a similar deck to me in his nationals, and he was watching my game to understand the draw my matchup a bit better. And he was noticing like these small little simple things that you can change to make the matchup better, like not card wise, more what I should have done in specific spots. And it's good because when I say that I don't played it 98% perfectly, like at least there's always room for improvement where I could have, whereas people have seen mistakes that I can work on it.
No, I think that's the way you've always got to look at these things because I don't think anyone's ever played, there might be one game out of a million that's actually the perfect game where everything lines up. But
yeah, and unfortunately, mate, to be fair, you've chosen to play the hero and the archetype of that hero that unfortunately demands the most perfect game you can possibly play. You give yourself the most decision points to play over. I mean, you play for an hour and a half, for God's sake. Most people stop at 50 minutes. So, to play the perfect Oldham game, or particularly an Oldham Dromine, match, that takes a lot of very minute decisions that have to be perfect every time. So yeah, it's a tough ask to try and play that perfectly, and unfortunately, that one didn't quite break your way. But
I have to say, having played a version of Jamie's deck, well, in fact, no, it was Jamie's deck at the Armoury yesterday. That thing is mental. Like Chromeyes and Tofiendels and playing stuff like Mage Master Boots to be able to play out passing Mirages with Go Again. He's obviously put a lot of time and effort into that deck, and it is genuinely a pleasure to play, but it's absolutely ruthless when someone, I don't know, Dominions a Luminar Ascension out your hand if you're playing Bolton.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Imagine playing Bolton.
Yeah.
Imagine taking Bolton to your Armoury. What are you doing?
Hey, I've done that on many an occasion. And I did that out of choice as well.
You did. You did. That is true.
I'd say I chose violence, but often it doesn't end out that way for me. Violence chose me that day.
Yeah, well, violence goes out the window when someone tumultuous your courage. Let's be fair.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, considering the same person has on occasion tumultied my Skullbone Cross Wrap and then domineered my Ivor Fidia out of my hands. So, to be honest, whoever did that got exactly what they deserved, didn't they, Liam?
I mean, that's not even the most egregious thing he did. To poor Frank, after he... How much equipment did you eat with Tom Ultai?
3.
And how much equipment has he got?
4.
Yeah, and he's not come back since.
No.
No, he's gone and played Dragon Ball. You literally scared him off.
Yeah, I mean, I deserve that a little bit, not gonna lie.
Yeah. To be fair, you did choose Bolton, so there's some kudos for that. But no, going back to Nats, I think I think you did yourself proud with it. Obviously, I know how much effort and time you put into it, and equally shout out to fellow traveller Scott Howling Mines, actual factual Mr. Mines. I think I got all these titles in then. He again managed to cash again. Did it on Icelander. He had a fantastic game against Shamir where, I'll be honest, I watched it. I had no idea what was going on. I did not even know whose turn it was. Moons were getting thrown at each other. It was just arcane everywhere. I don't know how anyone does a Wizard Mirror.
Yeah, he had some incredibly close games by the looks of it over the course of the Nationals. Yeah, he looked like a fantastic. I mean, to get an incredible result as well. Where did he finish up in the end? Was it 13th?
13th, I believe. So yeah, again, he continues his streak of cashing events when he travels with us. So yeah, at some point we are going to have to take some sort of royalty fee or appearance fee from him. But no, I think congratulations to everyone who managed to cash and everyone who turned up. Like we said, obviously there was some, let's say, shenanigans at the start of the week. But again, we'll finish that off in a bit. But in general, chaps, what did you think of Nats? Obviously, it was rather than at a big event like the Leeds Armories, it was actually in a store. As much as I thought Darksphere is quite a nice place, quite a big open store.
Yeah, the venue really impressed me. Actually, I've never had the chance to go down to Darksphere before. It is a lovely venue. I mean, the space they've got there is fantastic, considering it's all just kind of a basement store basically, but it's huge, much bigger than I was expecting it to be, despite the fact that people have told me of the number of people it could hold. So yeah, I was impressed with that. The event ran very well on the day. I don't know what you guys found in your interactions, but the judging and everything was done really well. So shout out to all the judges that made the event run. But everything ran smoothly enough on the day. It felt like. So yeah, for me at least, everything there was fantastic. It's just a bit of a shame it had to be in London.
Yeah, I think I can echo that sentiment. I mean, again, we're Northerners. The South is a strange place for us. Ned Stark didn't like going south, and neither do we. But I think the only thing for me was some of the drafts went a little bit strange. We ended up with a 7-man pod for our first one because someone decided to just take the packs but hadn't pressed a drop. And it was a case of either, we have to carry on because they're allowed, but obviously it throws out all the maths and all the prep that people had done. So I think that was probably the only downside for me. Like you said, George, I think all the judges did a sterling job, and obviously James is the head judge as well. I had a couple of nice chats with him, so I think it was genuinely. I think outside of, I think I'm getting a little bit. I'm ready for a new draft set, in spite of having to wait till February for one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a bit off topic from Nats, but yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think it's a bit of a shame that the Uprising hasn't turned out to be a particularly good draft set, at least from what from my perspective, and I think from most of the people I've heard from in the UK, it's not been particularly well received as a draft set. And unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with that one now, like you say, until February. And it's a real shame that the World Championships is going to be this format. Nothing would make me happier than last minute than to announce that the World Championships will be WTR draft. And yes, I know Liam would love that one.
Let's fucking go, man. That would make my fucking year. That would.
He does love a deal. I mean, I don't hate Uprising as a draft set. I think there's an element of the space in between draft sets, which I think we've talked about before. But I think Uprising draft, I think the main problem for me is if you get any inexperienced drafter, it can really mess the pod up because I think you've got so little room to pivot. I think if you get a good pod of good drafters, I think it can be a fun set. And I mean, maybe slightly too linear outside of Dromai, where you can kind of either go the Dragons route or you can go the Embermore route and the Senepais and Dune Breakers slapping people's faces. So I don't mind it as a set. Like in the future, I won't mind picking it up and drafting it, but it's not going to be a top draft set like say I think WTR is. But I am just ready for a new one now. And I know
Yeah. The time having to wait this long is a bit of a shame. I mean, I would also argue that I think this one just isn't particularly good. I think there's too many things that can punish you that are outside of your own control for this draft set. And maybe this is just coming off on the back of a bad draft weekend. But honestly, like going back over it, I'm not sure that there was actually things that I could have done that were inside my control that would have really resulted in me having a better draft. For some of these. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the draft format. If we could have more, it would probably just help to have a more regular draft. Getting more draft sets on a regular basis. But yeah, that's something we have covered before on the podcast. But
yeah, no, I completely get it. It's like I say, I'm ready for one. I don't think it's the worst draft set in the world. I definitely don't think it's the best. Like I say, I think it rewards a pod of experienced drafters who know how to read, send signals, and draft the seat. But if you get people who are just going to... I've literally got the thing of force fi. You can really end up with pods with 4, 5, 6 fives, and then you end up with two people who just absolutely walk it. And I think maybe some of the force fi stuff's been pushed a little bit too far, but
yeah,
I don't know.
That for certain doesn't help. I mean, this is the only set I've heard of where I've now heard from two different separate events for two different pods in which they've had admittedly under 8-person pods, but where one hero hasn't been drafted at all. Obviously, we had the Just Play RTN where it was only I think a 4-man pod where nobody drafted Icelander and everyone refused to pivot because they were scared somebody else would pivot as well. And then I believe there was also a draft pod at Nats. Again, I think it was an undersized pod, but I believe that no one drafted Dromai. And I think this is largely due to people's idea of they have to force Fi, and that Fi is just the best deck in the format, and therefore they don't want to be the player that's on Fi, and they're just going to therefore pick a substandard Fi deck.
Well, it's quite funny that people say that, and then the two people who 3-0'd the two draft pods I was in were both an Icelander.
Yeah, and honestly, I think if you've got the pick of the litter, I still will not be shaken really from the fact that I think the optimal Dromai deck beats a Fi and beats an Icelander, just because of the flexibility of like Senepais and Rake the Embers being very polarizing but very powerful cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said at the weekend, Liam, if you Dune Breaker and then Embermore, and they've not got a popper, that's 13 that they have to answer off one blue.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, let's represent 13. It's great.
The Force Fire thing, I don't know. Like a lot of people, I know a lot of high-end players are on the Force Fire camp, and I think the rationale is like if you're the 4th Fire in the pod, you're still better than the second Dromai or the second Icelander. You're just not better than the number 1 Dromai or the number 1 Icelander. It's like that kind of thinking to it. I think Fi is really easy to draft. It's really easy to play. I think it rewards like the less prep. I think like if you've not drafted Uprising before, you can walk in and draft Fi. It's not hard, right? You know what cards to take. You know what cards are good. 3 for 0s. Your 1 for 4s in reds. Your 3 block blues. You Scar for Scar. You know your good Majestics in like Take the Tempo. It's like quite simple to draft. Like even if you could draft yellows, like if you draft yellow as an Icelander, it's fucking dreadful.
Yeah.
But if you get forced to draft a yellow brand, it's not the end of the world. It's still 2 go again. It's still give me a card or take like at the end it's just forcing blocks regardless. So I don't know. I'm a big Dromai drafter. Like I think a lot of people know I'm a big Embermore guy. Like I draft Embermores bigger than dragons, more than dragons these days.
No, I'd say I've actually. I can obviously. I'm not going to pick up Icelander. Anyone who ever sits to my left, you're going to get Icelander cards. But that's just the type of player I am. But I will happily draft a Dromite. I'll happily draft a FaB. I can draft Icelander at a push, but it's not going to be my go-to strategy, and I'll try and push the person to my left onto Icelander. But I do think that people don't give the other heroes quite as much credit, and then if people are on that sort of force 5 mindset, I think it can sort of sway a few pods. So, but like I say, I'm very much ready for a new set, and I hope that obviously that'll be a fun draft set. I still think WTO is the best one we've had, but regardless, obviously it seems like the UK is the best country in the world in terms of FaB.
That's a statement and a half right there, right?
I'm living by it. You look at the 2 ELO boards. Mr. Folks is top of the CC and Faulkner's top of draft. So
congratulations both to them.
No, I think a big shout out to both of them. Obviously, Folks currently the actual Mr. PT. Obviously, Jamie's king of the draft. So I think it kind of shows. I know UK Nat's got a bit of stick for some of the stuff that happened last year, but I think it's really shown. The UK is genuinely up there in terms of some of the most stacked fields you're going to play against at these big tournaments.
Oh yeah, I mean, one thing I think is worth saying is that despite the fact that obviously we haven't got maybe the biggest event in the world, obviously we were Captain 96. That field was incredibly tough. You just have to look around the room and look at some of the draft pods that were sitting there. I think multiple people were sitting down at their draft pod thinking, "Oh my god, what I've got to play against these guys." But it was an incredibly tough field, and even down below the people that you saw in the top 8 or did see on stream or not, you go down a couple of tables and the field was still incredibly tough.
Yeah, I mean, I when I was I wasn't in that top bracket, but some of the players I was sat next to Matt Folks at one stage, like, what the hell's going on? But I say we have got so many good players in the UK that I don't think anyone's got a God-given right, and that's why I think you did so well, Liam, because there are so many good players, and like you say, you've got to play some people who are, world-renowned in terms of their ability, and then to lose to someone like Jamie, who is literally top of the world in E-level for draft, he's no schmuck.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
is how some people put it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the UK field stacked. Like, competing in Nats last year as someone who did quite bad. Like, the level of play, we all knew the level of play wasn't the best at the time, and then watching it grow from like the year that we've just had is quite insane now. Like, we had 2 people top 8. There are 2 people top 8 the Pro Tour. One of them won. We've got Rob Catton, who's like top 8 Collins. We've got a really, really stacked field of people just constantly topping, like, cashing PTs. Like, coming to the UK, some of these events are fucking hard.
I'll tell you what, that flight over to Worlds that we're on is going to have some serious people on it as well.
Oh, probably every fucker's on that flight.
FaB Air, mate. That's the way it's going to be. I've stopped giving but yeah, I think generally speaking, it's really nice to see the UK doing so well and to see so many people that, just chatting to people at Nats, the push the point guys, people like Finbar as well, and there's just everyone's there who, whether it's the creating content, whether it's the known for how good they are at the game. I think the UK has really put its stamp on FaB, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see that we can compete with the best of the best in this country. And here's hoping that we have as a country on the whole, we have a good performance when the World Championships rolls around.
Yeah, and I ran fucking Helm of Sharp Eye into them. Silly bastard.
Hey, it worked, apparently.
Well, the deck did. It didn't. Well, I mean, speaking of Worlds, because obviously that's kind of... I think we've got one more weekend of worth of Nats. I think we've got US Nats this weekend to date the podcast a little bit. Kind of the next big thing is obviously looking at the meta and some of the results. I think it was the Portuguese Nats had, was it 6 or 7 Oldims in the top 8?
4 Oldims, like all top 4.
Yeah, which is disgusting. I mean, do we think we see anything done to Oldhim?
No.
Ahead of Worlds? Do you think there'll be any bans in that
no.
sort of
I'm going to defend it like I would if Ash was stood in front of me. The guy's going after Oldhim. Ash, stay away. He's fine. Is Oldhim performing well? Yes. Is Oldhim counterable? Yes. Is he beatable? Yes. Does it just take some time and reps to figure out what you need to do? Yes. Do I think it deserves a banning? No. Is Crown of Seeds busted? Yes. If you ban Crown of Seeds, I don't. Oldhim will obviously drop dramatically, but I don't think the deck is that much of a problem where you go and ban Crown of Seeds. You know, like there's no problematic card in Oldhim. Like people are obviously going to say, "Oh, but Ulcanol's busted," but Ulcanol takes a 4-card hand or 3-card hand with Pulse, right? Like as much as 9 dominate, 2 random cards to the bottom is incredibly powerful effect. If you don't have the fuse, is literally just 3 for 7, which a lot of people could do way better, or it blocks for 3. So like, he's like I say, Oldhim is definitely up there, but it's not a problem.
Do you think he's the top deck at the moment?
That's an interesting one. Probably yes. I think so, but I don't. Again, that doesn't mean he needs bans, right? I think the only thing that needs fucking banning is Belittle and Art of War.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was my last game against Jacob Hand, which was the only game I got properly steamrolled at the weekend. And if FaB gets those Art of War turns and can string a couple of them together, it is so hard to get any tempo back because you just block your full hand and they hit you again for 16, and you block your full hand, leak some damage, and but you can't. You almost get to a stage where you just can't take enough damage and stay at a reasonable life total to present any sort of threat back. But I think Art of War, especially when we had Chain, was also problematic. I think I always said when I played against Chain, every time I saw an Art of War, it reduced my chance of winning by 30%. Because that's kind of how it works out. You see the first one and go, "All right, that's not good." Then you see the second go and go, "Shit," and you go the third one. It's like I've had to face 2 of these already, and obviously they were making far more use of the Banish Stone than FaB can, but I think that's busted. Like I say, Oakenold is a very good card. Obviously, there's 2 different versions of Oldhim in terms of the fatigue version, which you ran. There's the also more aggressive version. I think I'd be surprised if anything got banned.
You see, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I think you're asking yourself the wrong question, and
what
maybe
is the question, George?
Well, not does something deserve getting banned. More a case of, I think history would probably point to the fact that they will ban something because a major tournament is coming up and we are not going to have a new set to shake up the meta. I think in all likelihood we will see something banned because we're not going to have a hero LL between Nats and, in all likelihood, at least between Nats and Worlds. I think they'll probably go and take a shot at something, whether that be Belittle. Now, but the trouble is, does that actually change the meta right now? Now, I mean, obviously UK was won by a FaB deck. We've had Briar's wins, and maybe that's enough to change the meta. But I think that might end up being something from Oldhim, and the obvious choice there would be Crown of Seeds. The card is crazy, so I wouldn't be shocked if that ended up being something that they do. I don't think it will be, but I would quite welcome it, to be honest. I think it would make people change their Oldhim list significantly, and I think the deck would still be playable without Crown of Seeds. I don't think it shuts down that deck. It still defends incredibly well. You just have to actually pay for your defense reactions instead of just getting them for free because you've Crown of Seeds.
Yeah, I think the concept
for free.
The concept of the deck definitely changes without Crown of Seeds. Yeah. It's a different deck entirely. Like whether or not that deck is good is a different story.
Honestly, yeah. I think it'd be akin to Chain losing Seeds, right? Like obviously ironic considering the naming of both, but I think it'd be the same thing. You essentially have to take the deck back to the drawing board at that point. Yeah, exactly. And given his card pool, I don't think that makes him bad. I just think that would be a major shift in terms of what he would in the way it'd have to be built. Now, whether that's what they do to mix the format up, I don't know. If you'd have asked me this time, that like last month or so, before before we obviously had the national championship season. I think I would have just flat told you that I think their bans would be either Belittle or Minnowism, either one. Probably Belittle, that'd be the one that makes the most sense. But now I'm honestly not so sure, because I think they'll try and hit something that to impact the deck that does the best in nationals, which I think is going to be Oldhim.
I mean, you look at the results. I mean, going back to the Living Legend point, obviously everyone thought Briar would go. They've then changed how the Living Legend works. Obviously, Prism went. So that obviously with the redistribution of points, it's kind of halved.
Yeah,
all
so
the points all the heroes would get. So it's like Briar would have been on, I think, 900 now.
Yeah, bad news. We're going to be stuck with Rosetta Thorn for a while longer, which is a bit of a shame.
Thanks for mentioning that one, George. That's really upset me.
Yeah, sorry to break it to you, mate. Unfortunately, there's still a better sword than Dawnblade out there.
I'd refuse to hear it.
I know you said you wanted to target like the best deck in the meta with the Crown ban, right?
Mm-hmm.
But thinking about it in a way that we all know, but I think Belittle seriously needs to be the target, because not alone. I'm not saying like if Belittle gets banned, nothing else gets banned, but Belittle single-handedly makes FaB actually favoured into the deck that it shouldn't be favoured into Icelander.
Yeah,
It's because of the recursion of the blue, being able to just cheat out resources for free to play you through channel like Frigids and the stuff that's supposed to stop the aggro deck completely is ridiculous, I think. So I think if you remove that card, it changes.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me that, mate. I mean, I've probably been playing the most disruptive deck in Flesh and Blood for the last month. And yeah, Belittle can make you play through ridiculous amounts of disruption if it lines up right. And it definitely should be banned. I'm just not sold that they maybe won't hit something else in addition. Just for me, I'm not sure a Belittle ban at this point would impact the format enough to actually make it feel new and fresh. So you'd probably just see a drop off in FaB right at the very least. Briar's still probably viable just because Channel Mount Heroic is crazy.
So let's say they don't do an L, right? Let's say they don't touch L's, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they've banned an L yet, right? Correct.
They've suspended Crown in Blitz.
They suspended Crown in Blitz, but they've not flat out banned an L in a format yet.
Not as far as
so let's say they stick to that process of we're not going to ban an L. What do you ban in Oldhim or suspend in Oldhim other than Crown of Seeds to shake up the meta if you think it's that much of a problem? If Oldhim is that much of a problem,
I'm not going to say go so far as say he's that much of a problem. I think he's the best right now. I mean, he's not winning every national championship over, so a problem might be overstating it. But I think they'll just want to shake something up. But honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else. The way that they build now, that like for Crown of Seeds, it's just such an effective tool for so many different things that I'm not sure there's anything else that can replace it to be banned. Right? Crown of Seeds it gives you an efficient way to break frostbites. It gives you an efficient way to play defense reactions and still have a hand, which lets you be reasonably defensive even on an aggro build.
Mm. Another thing it also does, which is also it helps you get to your second cycle quicker.
Yeah, for certain. But I think this is the thing right at the moment, is that the only reason I could see an argument that Oldhim could potentially be a problem is that he can play incredibly defensive and incredibly aggressive from the same shell at the moment. He may not do it as efficiently as a deck like built to be one or the other, but he can do both. You know, an Oldhim can play an aggressive deck, be playing an aggressive build, can sit down across from you and go, do you know what? I don't think I can out-aggro this matchup. I'm going to try and fatigue you. And that's something he can do, and he can do it reasonably effectively because he may well still be running, Bastion, Rampart the Ramshead, rather. He may still be, so he's still running Crown of Seeds, and he may even still be running some number of defense reactions. Blue Staunches can still find their way into lists. They may well be in their sideboard. And they can do that on a reasonably aggressive shell. It's a lot of flexibility for a deck.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't there's a big championship coming up, they want to shake things up and change it. I'd probably make the case that they shouldn't do anything. Like I say, Oldhim isn't winning everything. I think he's a very good deck. I think Jeremiah can beat him, especially in a timed format, which, I think that's where they will struggle against them or go wide. I saw people running Katsu. Obviously, there's Kadachi Fai's and I think the wider things go, obviously you still got, like say, Crown and the Shield will always step in the way and make sort of Kodachis where you rely on to get them to get mask momentum triggers difficult.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'd make the argument that it just makes Mask of Momentum unplayable into Oldhim at the moment. The fact that he can block the first 2 swings, I just don't think you can play it. There's a reason that people play Bouncing Links into Oldhim, and that's because you should never get a Mask trigger against Oldhim, even if he's not looking at blocking a massive amount. He just crowns. He's got a prevention. He gets a free one with the shield, and then that still gives him a resource to do whatever else he wants with it. It's and that's assuming you don't even break the chain. So. Yeah, I don't know. I think that makes it a bit difficult. For me, there's not anything I could see that they could impact Oldhim with that isn't Crown. I would make the argument that I agree with Liam. I think Belittle, unfortunately, is too good at this point. You look at it and people are shoehorning it into decks that it should never really be in, right? That it's anti-synergistic with the hero's core. The fact that people play Belittle and Viserai, that feels wrong, right? Like he wants to play Runeblade actions and non-attack actions. Like everything about him feels wrong, but it works because the combo between the two of them are insane.
It's when decks start changing how they play to be able to put in Belittle and Minnowism.
And that's
why when start running it, was it Yellow Shrill, because that can get revealed to it. Some weird bugger was talking about running Yellow Snatch at some point.
I mean, I'm not sure who would do that, but it's essentially it's less of a question of who wants to run Belittle Minnowism, more a question of, just putting it in pretty much any deck. You take a deck and you find a way to shove Belittle and Minnowism into it rather than the other way around.
I've not worked out to do that in Dory, mate.
I'm sure you'll find a way. There's probably a Dory build out there somewhere, and it probably involves Yellow Snatch, and it's terrible.
Yellow Scar for Scar, Yellow Life for Life. Let's go.
Oh, it just sounds awful. But
hey, it gives you all the pitch in the world to swing your Dawnblade with afterwards. Easy.
Yeah, that's true enough. But I mean, if we're not going to get any new tools, obviously, hopefully, I know a lot of people found out recently that they're getting spoilers. We've not got one, obviously. Otherwise, I would have been shouting from the rooftops about it. But we have had 2 cards spoiled from the new set. So we've got Yoji. Obviously, he's and I did say he was a Guardian. Big boy who literally looks like he's purely designed for a PvE, UPF kind of world.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah, he looks incredibly PvE focused.
I could finally turn up and play Guardian and not be the most hated man in the room.
People actually want you there.
People will be glad to see you.
Imagine paying 3 just to want to. I'll step in the way.
I'll do it.
Pay 3, make a friend.
I can't wait. Just imagine, Adam can bring Hexagon and start swinging it a turn earlier just because I could do the damage for him. This is so good.
So when people you start running Oasis, literally turn up with a full set of Quell because that resolves on damage resolution. Just to get that, just in case it goes to 2 and you need to do something.
I'm telling you, I'm going to be so good at fucking PvE just with my Guardian fucking hero. It's going to be fucking great. All these staunches you complain about, though, we'll be blocking for you this time.
Yeah, I still do. It's one of those things. I mean, I guess it kind of shouts the fact it's coming. I think it was in the Eye of Ophidia interview with Big Whitey that he said that it was going to come next year. So I guess that and Yoji kind of shows that that's going to be the case. And then we got Blessing of Aether. So more wizard shenanigans. Just like at least it forces them to play on their turn. It means I can have my own turn and feel relatively safe until they do that into Fort Lightning, and then.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if feeling safe is the word to use with this card. I look at this and I scream, shit! Someone's gonna find some broken interactions with this. The only saving grace is there is no way to get this to trigger on Aether Wildfire on my turn.
Yes,
which is good and well done, RSS, because that no one needed that. No one needed to have Aether Wildfire buff for 3 by a 1-cost card. So that's fantastic.
It doesn't stop fucking Aether Spindle going in for 7, though.
It does not, which then means that they can see the wildfire, so next turn I can just die. But yeah, this card is definitely scary. I'm going to be terrified of watching people play this. I suppose the only good thing is you're taking a big risk in Kano if you play this, because you go off on your Aether Wildfire turn and you see this on the top of the deck. You're just going to be very, very sad.
True.
Yeah.
True.
It is true, but then I just see them get it. You just play it and go, well, if I don't kill you now, you're definitely dead on my turn.
But on turn 0, when they go
Yes.
play this into Aether Spindle for 7, and you're like, oh shit. You just
that would have to be turn 1. It will pop at the start of their turn, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's an aura, right?
Yeah, it's an aura. So,
Yeah,
so they have to play it, then start their turn, pops, and then they do evil things to good people.
Yeah, and like I say, it does mean that you're going to also have it on that time where you come in for lethal. Kano's like, I've got to kill you now, or never. You're on in a reasonable amount of life, to kill them. So like probably 28. Just that fatally low amount of life. You're going to come in with lethal, and they're just going to go, do you know what? Fuck it, and they're going to pitch Aether Wild. They're going to break their Stormthrower, Aether Wildfire, pitch off the top of the deck, and they're going to see Blessing of Aether, and you're going to be like, oh shit, I guess I'm dead. I guess I'm going to die then, because I can't go any further than this. This does no damage.
I know our resident wizard expert Scott was kind of saying he doesn't think it's a good card. It also blocks 2.
That's big. I think he's coming at it from an Icelander perspective as well, right? Which blocking 2 seems rough.
Scott, from an Icelander perspective?
No.
Madness.
Actual factual himself. He can't thaw himself out and play fucking fire, can he? No way.
But yeah. But no, it's one of those. I'm looking forward to spoiler season, seeing some new stuff, misread a card, get really excited, reread it, realise what it says, and then get sad again. So,
to be fair, I don't know if you guys have noticed, because I've only just found this myself, but it actually looks like we've got a spoiler schedule that's starting to take shape now as well.
We have
on the wonderful website of FaB.
It is on FaB. Yeah, we've got spoilers scheduled in for the 30th of October, moving through to the start of November. So it looks like we're actually starting to get some showing up on there now, even though they're a little way out yet.
Yeah, I have to say big shout out to the boys at FaB and also to Talishar for a lot of very good work at the moment. But I think we can talk about them in a future episode, because obviously it's been a big topic of conversation in the community recently, and I know it's something that we've started. Well, especially you two, and I'm slowly adopting it.
Yeah, we've definitely got a lot of use out of, I think, both of those tools at the moment. Both are fantastic. Like you say, absolute shout out to both. To the creators of both of those. FaB have really upped the game in terms of what's available. The fact that I could print out my sideboard notes right before the event was pretty good, I must say.
Yeah, we didn't tell Liam about that one.
No. I mean, I as I had to explain to him afterwards, I did only find this out right before I left to get in the car to come over, so couldn't tell him about it. But
it's good job. I didn't need them because I was old and it's fine. I know it, but
yeah, no, totally right. Like, none of it says swing hammer, so
No, it's blocked with 2 cards. Pay for crown, put 1 in Arsenal, but then swing with a hammer, Arsenal card. And
wrong. It's just literally all the sideboard notes say sledge, or not sledge,
or cold force sledge. Should we
now? Well, after that, now it does. Because now my man did acquire a cold force sledge.
But no, I think it's got to the stage where I think FaB and FabDB and Talishar all deserve an episode to themselves, and I think people can look forward to some content from us, whether it's us talking about games, playing games, and actually doing some streaming stuff. I mean, it does mean that people may well see our faces, which I think we will lose people at that point. But
yeah, we'll have to apologise for that separately at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, we can cope with that. But I think looking at the time and where we're at, it is time to start getting our mounting anger on and really getting into vexing malice, which I know we've already hinted at it, and usually we assign it to one of us, but I think all 3 of us fit into this category on that dreary Tuesday morning, where the decision was taken, let's say, rather than made.
I think the word decision might be a bit liberal here.
The judgment was passed that UK Nats was going to be moved after the death of Queenie, the growth of the queue, although at that stage it was only a mile long. And obviously it was the hasty decision to say they were going to postpone it, which I think we were going to record that night, but I genuinely think I was too angry.
Yeah, at this point particularly, I was too angry. I mean, I've got to be honest, after seeing it on the Tuesday, at first I thought, that's really funny, what a great joke. And then realised that people were serious, and that actually, instead of after the Queen passing away on the weekend before, instead of announcing it then that they were planning on postponing it because it was in the morning period, and despite the government advice to go ahead with events, they had decided to wait until 3 days before the event started to tell us that they were moving it to 2 weeks later.
Which obviously, some of us are adults. We do have commitments outside of FaB, unbelievably so, even for us. And, people couldn't make that new date. I know I wouldn't have been able to make that new date. I know several others who couldn't as well. And so began the Twitter war. There was those who couldn't make it initially who were, let's move it to this new date because I might be able to make that. There was those who had hastily changed their plans and then quickly realised that the weekend they changed it to was also the weekend of the London Marathon and also a train strike. So it was general chaos it must have been a good 12 hours. No one seemed to be happy. I know there was, stuff thrown at Darksphere. There's multiple emails sent to LSS to the extent where they had to release a statement. And then we played the Armoury. There was so many dejected faces. Myself being one of them. Like I say, I was spitting feathers, literally to the extent where I think Liam, you just came and gave me a hug when we went for food before you said hello.
I mean, I was high on copium, so
you were full on drank the Kool-Aid, my friend.
I was the guy that was like, this is gonna get changed back, and it did.
You went full Fate for Scene.
I went like Adam on Levia, but whereas I was actually right to be high on copium.
Oh, poor Adam. I mean, it's me.
I mean, you went Fate for Scene. I went full sink below. I was in the pits. I was spitting feathers, and then obviously we came out the Armoury to, oh shit, there's been an email. To which we all checked our phones, saw the questionnaire from Darksphere saying we've seen the responses. Yada yada. It was a quick press of strongly disagree, strongly agree, send. And we woke up to the news it got moved back. I mean, we were lucky in that we hadn't moved anything.
Yeah. Luckily, I think we've taken the sensible approach of there's been enough public backlash here. It may well move back. Let's just hold off a couple of days, see what happens, and it paid off for us in the end.
Whereas, there was a lot of people who thought, we'll try and get ahead of this, try and get things while they're cheap. Life ain't cheap these days. We'll have a new set in November to pay for, trips to pay for to San Jose. And then it got shifted back, and LSS very kindly, I think, have said they'll compensate those people who lost out. If anyone who hasn't got in contact with us, I'd suggest doing so quickly. But what a fucking shit show, boys.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, obviously, I don't think we got a full picture of exactly where this decision came from or where the idea of moving Nats originated from. But I don't know. I don't know who was thinking this through and why they didn't do what they ended up doing anyway, which was maybe get in touch with the community first and see what we wanted to do. Because I think I can speak for all of us as well, and I don't know about if anyone else had a different experience in London that weekend. But actually, it was very much like a normal time in London as far as I was concerned. The disruption wasn't really there. We weren't in central London. We weren't, playing around a queue. So as it happened, I think there was no justification for moving in that weekend. Everything was fine. The attendance was still much better than I expected because I thought after moving the weekend there and back and everything else, I thought we'd see a drop. And
high 80s, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it was high 80s, and I don't think they actually used the last chance qualifier to fill that many spots. I believe it was either 2 or 4. I think I heard different numbers from different people that made it through the last chance qualifier. But regardless, the attendance was very good. The disruption was non-existent really compared to a normal tube journey in London, and just a bit of extra traffic on the drive down the evening before.
I think I can only echo that. There was, so we drove down. I don't think there was any more traffic than you would have got on a Friday night going into London.
No.
I don't think the hotel was exactly the same as it would have been. I think it was maybe a little bit busier on the Saturday night, but that might have been just because of how late it was.
Yeah, it may have been more expensive if we would have had to have rebooked, I think, nearer the time. Yeah. But as we'd already booked and we'd stuck it out, obviously there was no extra cost incurred from us there. So, I just don't see don't see the justification for why it ever should have been moved in the first place.
No. And like I say, the queue wasn't going through the shop. No one, I believe, was lost to the queue in the process of turning up for Nats. So, I mean, it's one of those things. Anything like this in the future, obviously, hopefully, it won't happen again, particularly soon. But just ask. I think the sensible thing is always just ask what people want. Literally, put a public poll out. So send an email around to like a Google form. You've got everyone's emails from the Gem IDs who've qualified. Here's what's happened. What do you want to do? You have this option, this option, this option, and pick the most popular one. Yeah. Making snap decisions is never going to go well because you're going to alienate a lot of people.
Why in the world they did it? I think the whole thing was handled terribly. I think there's one other thing I think actually we haven't mentioned yet, which I think needs to be criticised wholeheartedly, which is the original announcement was via their Facebook page. It was purely just a
100%.
Just a picture on a Facebook page of this statement that was just that it was going to be delayed, and there was no question, no asking of impunity, but they just put that out there. And then the only reason I even heard about it before that was because somebody shared it on the Discord. Why in the world their first option wasn't to email the people whose emails they had because they were attending the event? Why we weren't contacted directly first before it was made public that they were going to be delaying? I will never know. It was a truly terrible decision to go about it that way. Never mind, like you say, they should have just moved to immediately what they ended up having to do anyway, which was to poll the community to see what was preferential for the people who are actually going.
You've got everyone's emails through Gem, through the Eventbrite link we all to register for. I think it was handled genuinely terribly. It was an unexpected event. It was a big event. You only had to see the news in terms of what was happening in London, but it was so far away. London's actually a big place. It's a big city, and it's designed to handle big events. We're close to Wembley. Would they have moved it if there was an England match on? That would have been more impactful.
Yeah, it may well have been.
There's football matches going on that weekend, so I think it was a poor decision, released terribly, handled terribly. But I do think we at least got to the right decision and had a wonderful Nats.
We did, and to be fair, obviously LSS have promised to compensate the people who've been impacted financially for it. They, at least from the communications that I've that had with them myself, from sending emails to them and just obviously voicing my opinion on the matter, and obviously seeing their statements afterwards, they do seem to have handled it very well. So, they've obviously, I think, recognised that whoever the decision came from, whether it was from themselves, from Dark Sphere, that maybe it wasn't the best, and that in the end, the event went smoothly. So we can't complain too much.
The learning point: don't do things in London anyway.
That would be better, because at least then, if things go horribly wrong, you need to rebook your hotel. At least it doesn't cost a fortune.
Yeah, you've got Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds. LR obviously done it in Leeds before, so even Scotland. Why not? Although we did have a trophy for the English, so we can't go that far north.
Yes, well, I mean, we never even got to cover the point of their, should we say, something of a mistake when it came to our national championship trophy. When it turned out to be not quite so much a national championship, more of a.
To fair, if we're in the US, it would have been the UK World Championship, because everything in the US is a world champion. So, yeah. Anyway, I think I've dug enough of the globe now to be able to call quits on this, chaps. Unless there's anything else you want to add?
No, I think all good from me.
All good
Well, in that case, gentlemen, it's as always, it's been a pleasure. For everyone who's listened, thank you very much. And you should be able to look forward to more content coming from us very soon.